Franklin, Stevie Wonder, James Brown, Michael Jackson, Marvin Gaye, Sister Sledge, New Edition, and others. Some real flavor was going down in Dodger Stadium last night. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Live from Leimert Park, USA, I'm Tavis, Smiley, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to see you and me back in stride again. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580. 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Everything is at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you right now to download our app at KBLA 1580. Download the app and listen to us live anywhere you are in the world in real time, but only by downloading our app right now at KBLA 1580. Should you miss us any day in real time, check out the podcast of our program by going to the app, the website, Anchor, Spotify, Apple, so many places to get the podcast and listen at your leisure. Should you miss us any day in real time, but I am delighted to have you along live with us today for the next 3 hours. You can also watch the live stream of this program by tapping on the KBLA TV icon on our app or by going to our YouTube channel right now. Let me also invite you to follow me on Facebook and Twitter at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, imagine getting a phone call that your mother and 2 cousins were killed during Bible study at church. That's exactly what happened to Sharon Risher 8 years ago this week when Dylan Roof calmly walked into Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, and opened fire, killing 9 members of the church. We will talk about hope and forgiveness with the Reverend Sharon Risher in hour 2. In our third hour, 2 conversations.
Say it with me. Really wanna be with you. Wanna get down with you. What you wanna do? I really wanna be with you. Wanna get down?
I wasn't looking for love, but when you see it, better get into it. That's what it was.
Up first in hour 3, we will talk with 2 members of the legendary rap group Billboard magazine recently ranked as one of the top 40 rap groups of all time. T3 and Young RJ of the group Slum Village join us on the top of hour 3 today. On the B side of hour 3, we'll be joined by the producer of some of the longest-running unscripted series in television history, Arthur Smith. We will delve into Smith's new book, Reach, Hard Lessons and Learn Truths from a Lifetime in Television. That on the backside of hour 3. In this first hour today, 2 more conversations on the B side of this hour. We will introduce you to Bill Banfield, host of a new show coming to KBLA Talk 1580 Saturdays and Sundays at 10 p.m. starting Saturday, June 24th. In fact, next week, we will introduce you to a few more new hosts joining our lineup as we prepare to celebrate our 2nd anniversary on Juneteenth and kick off year 3. Wow. We kick off a year 3 next Tuesday. I'm just giggling. I can't believe it's been 2 years already, and we're about to commence our 3rd season here on KBLA Talk 1580 prime time for me to say thank you. Thank you for your support of this station over these last couple of years. And we look forward to launching some new shows and some other new ventures we'll be announcing soon here as we, again, commence our 3rd year. Bill Banfield show, by the way, is called Jazz Urbane. Jazz Urbane. And Dr. Bill Banfield will join us on the B side of this hour and tell you all about his new program coming to KBLA Talk 1580 next weekend, the 24th. That said, we commenced today's program in conversation with our friend and brother Paul David Henderson about the indictment yesterday of Daniel Penny in the chokehold death of Jordan Neely on that New York subway. Paul David Henderson, welcome back to KBLA, sir. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Tavis. So great to be back. I'm doing quite well. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here and have this conversation.
My great delight to have you for these next 30 minutes or so. Let me start with this. I was in New York City a week or two ago and connected with Alvin Bragg, and it's a relief, for lack of a better word, that this indictment has come. As you well know, for a week or so, there were protests all over New York demanding that Alvin Bragg, the first African-American to ever be DA in the city, there were protests demanding that they arrest and arraign Daniel Penny in this choking death of Jordan Neely. It has finally come. What do you make of what it took to make it happen?
Okay, well, 2 things. So, one, let's talk about the relief that you were feeling, because I think that's a relief that a lot of people were feeling, especially communities of color. Mm-hmm. And not for nothing, I think it's tied to having leadership like Mr. Bragg there as the prosecuting attorney making decisions that are implicated by race about who gets charged and how they get charged. I think that's part of what you were feeling and part of your relief, aside from knowing him and knowing the great things that he's done in his past and his career. That is part of it. Mm-hmm. But there is no longer for this case at least, there wasn't the presumptive validation from vigilantism that we've seen in this country in the past when it involved someone acting on behalf of authority and an unarmed black man. Mm-hmm. And we've seen encounters like that throughout this country. So before we even began, I think those are some of the theories and those are some of the sentiments that many, especially in communities of color, were feeling about this situation. I mean, it's not something that we haven't seen before, that doesn't feel familiar to narratives that have made the press. And I'm reminded automatically of stories like Emmett Till, of stories like Trayvon Martin. And I know each case is unique and different, but again, we're talking about deadly encounters with individuals acting on presumed authority of law enforcement or some other agency or their own sort of retribution against unarmed black men that ends out with deadly results. And so that's all of what I feel and all of what I'm presuming about what you're saying, your feelings when you had the conversation with him, you met with him just about this case before we even start talking about the facts and the specifics here. There's a lot. There's a lot of sentiment around what happened independent of what actually happened. And that history, I think, is relevant to how we approach the situation. And that history is relevant to how we feel about that situation in terms of what happens next.
We will talk about that history when we come forward and how you see this case moving forward. Alvin Bragg is a busy brother these days. He's prosecuting Daniel Penny. He's prosecuting Donald Trump, Jonathan Majors, his sad case, the actor. There's a lot going on in Alvin Bragg's office in Manhattan, but we will talk specifically with Paul David Henderson about the indictment, finally, of Daniel Penny yesterday in New York for the choking death on that subway of Jordan Neely. June is Black Music Month, and every day this month we've had a featured artist that we've celebrated all 3 hours of this program. Today, given that she was just in town for a couple dates last weekend, we're going to celebrate Janet Jackson all 3 hours of today's program on KBLA Talk 1580.
To talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Ready for an unforgettable experience this Juneteenth weekend? I'm Queen Mother Nina Womack, inviting everyone to my multimedia arts exhibit called Wayusi, The Legacy of Slavery and Freedom. Experience African culture, Black art, live performances, keynote speakers like Dr. Melina Abdullah of Black Lives Matter LA and more. See the door of no return, an 18th century slave dungeon relic from Ghana. Produced by Transmedia 360, sponsored by the Department of Mental Health, Cal Mesa, and Take Action for Mental Health LA, running June 16th through the 18th at ArtShare LA, 801 East 4th Place, 90013 off of 4th Street, 1 block east of Alameda in the Downtown Arts District. Get your tickets at legacyofslavery.com or call 877-594-1292.
Did you know that all City of LA renters have rights? Check out these 3 facts. Residential tenants can't be evicted without reason or just cause. Eviction protection still exists for unpaid COVID-19 rental debt due before March 31st, 2023. And you have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice. 5 days. Many Angelinos may be at risk of losing their home, and that's why we want you to know your rights. Learn more at housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
At Lowe's, we're always bringing pros more ways to save. Right now, buy a Flex stackable tool storage system for just $249. That's $50 in total savings. Plus, earn up to 2 times the bonus points per dollar when you buy select Flex tools. Shop in-store or online for deals you can't beat. Because Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Valid 6/8 to 6/21. While supplies last. U.S. only. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts, if any. Valid through 6/30. Subject to change.
Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tavis Smiley. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, and we are glad about it. Our guest in this hour is Paul David Henderson. We are celebrating June, Black Music Month, and every day, as you know, on this program, we have an artist in residence, or as I said yesterday, an artist in absentia, really. But their music is present. In all 3 hours, 3 hours of today's program, that is, we'll be playing the best of one Janet Jackson. As I said, our guest in this hour, though, the first half hour at least, is Paul David Henderson, legal expert, former prosecutor, and director of the award-winning San Francisco Department of Police Accountability. Delighted always to be in dialogue with Paul David Henderson. So, Paul, I'm watching my clock. We got about 15 minutes to the bottom of the hour, and I want to make sure we cover as much ground as we can. So let me do it this way. Let me surrender the mic to you and ask you just to share with us some of your takeaways from this choking death of Jordan Neely on this subway by Daniel Penny. He's being indicted yesterday. What has happened, what is happening, what is to happen as we move forward in this case. But give me some of your takeaways. The mic is all yours, sir.
Sure. Thank you so much. Well, I think there's a couple of unusual things that stand out to me about this case. One, that we've seen, especially with what's going on these days with the ex-president Donald Trump, it's not a common thing where you see someone who is the target of a criminal investigation giving a lot of public statements. Obviously, we see that with Trump, but this was another case here where we saw that. He was giving statements before the indictment, talking about what he believed were his justifications, and he made these statements publicly where he indicated that he had to act for others, that he was acting for himself, and he had fear for himself. He had fear for women and children that were on the train with him. And that, I believe, was an attempt to broadcast to an audience, both to just potential jurors and to prosecutors about the reasonableness of his fear. That's why he was making those statements, because that's one of the legal standards to determine when someone is allowed to act if the fear is reasonable. Now, that raises a number of questions for me as an African-American. That standard of fear is subjective.
Yes.
And when the suspect is a person of color, how is a jury going to determine what fear is reasonable? That's why he's making those statements, to raise all of those issues. What I think is really interesting, though, is he is presumably not represented by counsel to have made those statements. And when he ultimately has his counsel, you may see those statements get walked back. Lawyers loathe to have their clients make statements like this out in the public, unless this was all pre-planned to have the intended effect on both prosecutors and potential jurors about what he thinks. The issue, though, is even with his statement, and even if you believe that he was in reasonable fear or he was acting on reasonable fear of others, that's still not the standard for a perfect self-defense to prevent the charges and to challenge his indictment. And there's a big main reason for that is New York is not a stand your ground state. And so the law for New York, as in many other states that don't have stand your ground, is a person can only use the amount of physical force that they reasonably believe is necessary to defend themselves or others from what they reasonably believe to be illegal or imminent use of force or threat. Now, notice two things. One, that reasonable is used twice, and that's a subjective interpretation that a jury will determine. So I think it's a big sign that this indictment, Bragg used the grand jury because they determined that the reasonableness. So it wasn't just Bragg as a prosecutor making an independent determination, as he could have and in his authority. I think he intentionally brought it to a grand jury to fly the kite up and see, and that grand jury already independently determined that the reasonableness was not effective. That's why we have the indictment. And the key about me raising the issue of this not being a stand your ground state, that means that if the self-defense argument that he's trying to raise fails, you still get to an involuntary manslaughter. So if you try to use self-defense, but your self-defense fails or is imperfect, you can still be held liable. And I believe that's why he was charged in the way that he was charged, and that's why he is facing an involuntary manslaughter charge. Because even if you feel like the self-defense was justified, keep in mind, though, there was no actual action. What he's saying is that there could have been imminent action, and so that's why he had to act. But no one else was hurt. No one else was touched. He hadn't harmed anyone other than having the mental break, and people were concerned about his behavior on the subway. but that does not translate into the use of lethal force. And this was a move that included lethal force by holding him down and choking him like that. But even if you believe that he was validated in restraining him and holding him down for a period of time, because he was choked out, what I think you'll hear in the trial is a lot of conversation about that time period where he passed out, in between the time that he passed out and that he died, when, because there's no stand your ground, there was an absolute duty to withdraw and only use as much force as necessary to meet whomever you were defending yourself against force, and that was not lethal force. And so that's where there's a problem, and that's where the statements that Penny was making fail that he had made in the public. So those are all the big legal issues.
No, I love the way you broke that down. I even understand it. So that's why I love having you on. That's how good you are. You make me understand it even. That said, the recurring issue here, and you tiptoed around this earlier. Let me ask you to go straight to it. The recurring theme here, the recurring issue here is vigilantism. Vigilantism. What I don't even know in 2023 how to process that.
Yeah, well, here it is. It's unofficial action, vigilantism, unofficial action taken to prevent crime or to punish or catch people believed to be criminals. And the problem is that this is oftentimes individuals acting on authority of law enforcement, because Daniel Penny was not acting on authority of law enforcement, but he believed that he was. And he was military trained, but he was not law enforcement. That's how he learned the technique that he used that was so effective beyond just the restraining, though, that, ended up killing someone right there in the subway while the incident was taking place. But the vigilantism itself is what is typically, and what we've seen historically in the news, used as a validation for people to intervene and act aggressively, including up to lethal force, in very big cases. I mean, this was the whole conversation that we had all last year talking about Ahmaud Arbery. Exactly that. From folks jumping in and wanting to exert authority on behalf of authorities when they believed that someone was engaged in criminal conduct. Now, whether or not that belief was real or not is tied to the legal concept that we were talking about earlier, which is whether or not your fear was justified and whether or not their behavior actually was illegal or not. And even if those things are true, you are still only allowed to meet that crime or meet that fear with what is reasonable. And that's if you have stand your ground or not. The stand your ground issue comes in after you have confronted or intervened in some way with a suspect, how much force you use. And if your force is lethal, that takes away your self-defense argument if the suspect themselves are not exerting lethal authority. The problem that we have is, in the past, that results has been pretty bad for communities of color. It's been pretty bad for unarmed African-American men who are perceived to be more dangerous. And when the jury believes that, they validate the self-defense argument, and then we don't have convictions. That's what's floating around.
No, I get it. I'm watching my timer. I got less than about 5 minutes left with you. I want to cover 3 more things right quick here in 5 minutes. But let me just say right quick, and you and I concur on this, obviously, given what you've already shared with us. It's just mind-boggling to me. And again, I don't say this out of any naivete, but it's mind-boggling to me the pervasive extent to which a fear of black people has been used effectively in this country as a defense for years on end, and it is not a foregone conclusion, sadly, that defense will not be successful won't be successful in this case. We shall see in the days ahead. Let me just ask you 2 or 3 other things right quick though. One, how do you process the millions of dollars that's been raised for his defense? Ron DeSantis jumped out front encouraging his supporters to donate money to the legal defense fund of Daniel Penny, who he called a good Samaritan, you'll call. Other Republicans have gotten in on the act. He's raised millions. He's been assigned counsel, but he's raised millions of dollars because these Republicans have gone in making sure that this good Samaritan, again, as they see it, has the resources he needs to defend himself in this case. What do you make of that?
You know, Tavis, honestly, that question in and of itself is the very reason that I wake up to be on your show.
Wow.
I literally prevented myself from clapping right now because those are the broader implications, because I believe those statements and those actions, both in raising money and raising these issues and calling him a good Samaritan in this way, is nothing more than race-baiting dog whistle.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what that is, to validate the presumptive validation of vigilantism when it's used against communities of color. That's exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. And the implications there are political in nature, meaning, but this is why I think we have a real problem with the Republican Party as an adoptive admission for these high-profile figures within the party articulating and taking positions that could not be more clear as you connect the dots, that are against communities of color.
Yep.
That interpret every opportunity they can to validate that people of color don't deserve the same protections, don't deserve the same laws, and don't deserve the same scrutiny when it involves a defendant that does not fit the profile that they want to protect and that they want to vote for the party.
Yeah.
That's just the truth. I'm so glad you raised that.
No. In the 90 seconds I have left here, what are we to do ultimately about the mental health of black men? We know that Jordan Neely had lost his mother, and we're told that sent him down a rabbit hole with regard to his stability. But whatever, he had done nothing to deserve to be choked out. But it's clearly an issue of mental health, and I don't know what we do about that.
I'll tell you what we do. We participate in the system to make sure that our voices are heard, that we understand that Jordan Neely is a victim. We understand the bigger picture, that Jordan Neely needed services, that we have to stand as a society and as empathetic individuals to make sure that we have broader protections for everyone in this society, and that when people are suffering, that we try to have interventions and help for them. And when those interventions are jumped over and people take individual action like this failed vigilantism, that we hold them accountable. And part of holding them accountable means that the small things that we can do on a day-to-day basis are things like sitting on juries, and are things like voting, and are things like making sure that our local prosecutors, our local law enforcement are following the rules because we are paying for their services in ways that are race neutral. Yeah. And you can't get there unless you're raising conversations like this and asking questions and studying data to understand, know, and affirm that your elected and appointed leaders are following your values and beliefs. That's what I think the answer is.
Nope. Speaking of elected and appointed leaders, we thank Alvin Bragg, the DA in New York, in Manhattan, for, I think, doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
And bringing charges against Daniel Penny and the choking death of Jordan Neely on that subway. We thank legal expert, former prosecutor, and director of San Francisco's Department of Police Accountability, Paul David Henderson, for coming back on this program once again to make us understand these complex issues. Appreciate you, my friend. I'll talk to you soon. All the best to you.
Thanks for having me, Tavis.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley. And get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
A good Thursday morning to you. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. 9 women are accusing African-American comedian Bill Cosby of sexual assault and battery in Nevada. The accusers say Cosby sexually assaulted them in his Las Vegas hotel suite between 1979 and 1992. Cosby is accused of drugging or attempting to drug each woman. The alleged victims filed a joint lawsuit against Cosby Wednesday. The American Medical Association is adopting a new policy that says body mass index shouldn't be the only factor in determining if a patient is overweight. The AMA says the measure does not predict disease risk equally across racial and ethnic groups. Body composition, belly fat, and genetic factors should also be considered. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Single issue to Monterey Park for a crash on the 60 westbound at Atlantic Boulevard. Right now, traffic a mess starting back at San Gabriel Boulevard. In the Cajon Pass, got an accident now. 15 southbound for Highway 138. Middle lane taken away there, and you're going to be jammed up from the 395. And in Santa Ana, got a crash on the 55 southbound for MacArthur Boulevard. Those vehicles blocking the right-hand lane, causing heavy delays on Knoll Ranch Road. Signal canceled in Sun Valley, 5 southbound for Hollywood Way. All lanes reopened, but still really tough from Tuxford.
Ready to take control of your phone plan? Well, then you better take that next turn to a Verizon store. Because My Plan from Verizon is the kind of control we all deserve. Get exactly what you want. Only pay for what you need. Get My Plan at your Verizon store today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers lost by 4 to the Chicago White Sox last night, but they hit a home run with their Black Heritage Night. One of the celebrated community organizations, the Brotherhood Crusade on Slauson in South LA, received a check for $130,000. The donation came from Dodgers second baseman Mookie Betts during pregame ceremonies. Congratulations to Brotherhood Crusade's CEO, Cherise Breman Weaver. She was on the field to receive the generous donation from Betts. In addition to the Dodgers community support, an all-star lineup of music was played throughout the night between innings. Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, James Brown, Michael Jackson, Marvin Gaye, Sister Sledge, New Edition, and others. Some real flavor was going down in Dodger Stadium last night. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Everybody in the house, make some noise!
Is there a better day of the year to celebrate the anniversary of the only unapologetically progressive talk station west of the Mississippi, focused on issues that impact the black community?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
We think not. A station that amplifies black voices like yours with hosts and guests who look and sound like you. Celebrating our second anniversary on Juneteenth. We're KBLA Talk 1580. And you ain't seen nothing yet. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
If your Medi-Cal is ending, Cover California is here to help. Cover California is a service from the state that helps you get affordable health insurance. In many cases, at no cost to you, just like with Medi-Cal. We have quality health plans, and we'll help you every step of the way to get the one that works for you and your family. So, if you're no longer eligible for Medi-Cal, check out Cover California. We'll keep you covered. Learn more at coveredca.com.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like watering your lawn during the hottest time of the day and leaky faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here with a quick recap from my time at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. There were speakers Ian Dunlap, Damon John, Lynn Richardson, MC Light, Don Kennedy, to name a few. Take a listen to what Justin Grant, Community Development Lead at Chase's Advancing Black Pathway, let's see what he had to say.
So I'm Justin Grant. I lead community development and national partnerships for JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Pathway strategy. And so we're focused on strengthening the economic foundation of black communities, and we're making targeted investments in programs like the Advancing Black Wealth Tour to help us get our tools and resources out to the community to drive sustained impact over time.
So when it comes to black and brown people, it sounds like Chase is making it their personal responsibility, not only to facilitate these events, but to educate and provide resources. So Mr. Grant, I have to ask, what does wealth building look like for the individual?
It's home ownership. It's having that freedom to be able to start your own business and create jobs in your community. And it's having that long-term plan towards retirement, having that vision for what you want your life to be, and you have the resources to actually live it.
I'm Aisha Cairo. Thanks for sticking around. That was my recap from Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. First stop was here in LA, and they're taking it national.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tavis, Smiley, that's Janet Jackson, and we're playing Janet all 3 hours of our program today as we celebrate June as Black Music Month. Every day on this program we pick a different artist and celebrate their grand contributions to the soundtrack of our lives. And today it's Janet Jackson, all 3 hours of this program. Janet was just here for a couple big shows last weekend, and so it's good to hear Janet on KBLA Talk 1580. That's Janet, but I want to introduce you now to Bill Banfield, host of a new show coming to KBLA Talk 1580, Saturdays and Sundays, Saturdays at 10 p.m., Sundays at 9 p.m., starting Saturday, June 24th. In fact, next week we will introduce you to a few more new hosts joining our lineup as we prepare to celebrate our second anniversary on Juneteenth and kick off year 3 next Tuesday. Bill Banfield's show is called Jazz Urbane, and we'll tell you all about it right now that Dr. Bill Banfield is on the line. Bill, how are you, sir?
Fine, sir. How you doing?
Man, if I complain not being in great, I'm doing well, and I'm delighted to be in dialogue with you as always, even for these 30 minutes here. So as I mentioned a moment ago, we have a number of new shows that we're rolling out next week, and we've been promoting this, and the audience knows there's a new flavor coming to our station, and why should we not have new stuff as we kick off again year 3? And speaking of flavor, none of these shows are going to be more flavorful than well, maybe one. I should say this, and you'll meet them next week. We finally, I've been at this for a while now. I've had a number of options, and I finally made my choice. But we're launching a food show next week. I've been asked by a lot of people, when is KBLA going to have its own food show? Because the contributions that black folk have made to food, to the culinary arts is vast. And so we're announcing next week a number of shows, including a brand new food show. So that show will have flavor, but your show has a different kind of flavor. Tell me and well, I know already. Tell the audience about Jazz Urbane, Bill Banfield.
The Jazz Urbane show will highlight a number of things. I've been listening to not only what you're saying now, but the radio, the programming. I mean, the whole set of cultural devices that allow us to look at our folks, to talk about the world. And one of the important ones, of course, is the arts and music. So I love that food and culinary arts and literature and all of those things are included. But this show focuses on the aesthetics and the meaning of music in our lives, and it's called the Jazz Urbane Show.
Yeah. Can you imagine? I've said a number of times over the month of June already. So the audience has heard me espouse this point of view before, but I cannot imagine the American soundtrack without black voices on it. I mean, you take the black stuff out of music in this country, and the whole experiment just falls flat, does it not?
It sounds like Lawrence Welk. That's right. That's right.
And I ain't hating on Lawrence Welk. I know you ain't either. But you take the black influence out, and then it's flat, as I said. So talk to me broadly. We'll get to jazz in a second. But talk to me broadly about the impact, the influence. You teach this stuff. You've taught it at Berkeley for years, the Berkeley School of Music. I mean, Dr. Bill Banfield is a big deal, y'all. He's a very, very big deal. He's taught this stuff to all kinds of students. He has his own spot, his own club in Boston. He has residencies all around the world. I mean, he's a brilliant ethnomusicologist, if I can put it that way, a performer himself. And so we're honored to have him host this program, Jazz Urbane, on KBLA Talk 1580. You I promise you, you will be inspired. You're going to be empowered. You're going to be entertained. You're going to learn a whole lot from Dr. Bill Banfield. You get a chance to audit for free what the Berkeley students have gotten for years for a fee. You get it for free. But let me go back to this point I was getting to, which is the impact of black music on the canon. Talk to me about it.
No, I mean, the way in which, if you think about the whole African notion, that the spirits descend with a good song, and that good song is inclusive of the way in which our communities live, breathe, and work together. And so music has always been a critical part of that armament for arming black people in all of the diaspora. We're talking about out of West Africa, but landing in Cuba, landing in the West Indies, landing in Cincinnati, landing wherever we landed. Music was a critical part of that equipment. So when you look at that, that's one thing. But then when you look at how the rest of the world looked at that contribution, it came through certainly sciences and all the other things that we were able to contribute in the West. But arts was a critical one. It's high in the way in which music was projected. And there we were experimenting with putting through our identity plus taking in everybody else's identity. So it's a very global sense of what black musicians and black communities have done with music. They carried these messages, but they also helped other people to connect. That was the beauty of our music. It welcomed everybody. So we're talking about African music for sure, but we're talking about the spirituals, the blues, R&B, hip-hop, jazz for sure, the civil rights music that came out of the 60s. Again, projecting our values, asking the critical questions, and guess what? The music celebrated us with everybody else as well, so it was welcoming. That's the power in black music.
Yeah. Let me talk about jazz here specifically in just a second, speaking of the power of black music. And I should mention that we will, again, unpack this and roll this out for you more next week. But we are about to unveil a new entertainment block, a block of programming, 4 or 5 hours every Saturday night, every Sunday night. Jazz Urbane will be a part of that block. So we're talking music, we're talking food, we're talking the arts, we're talking film. So again, an entertainment block that we're about to announce Saturdays and Sundays here on KBLA Talk 1580. So some brand new programming that make up this entertainment block. We'll tell you again more about that next week. But one of those programs is Bill Banfield's Jazz Urbane Hour, and we're delighted, humbled, and honored to have him join this station. Let me come to jazz specifically. So I was in New York recently to receive an award, and excuse me, while I was there, I took the occasion to hang out with my dear friend, your friend, Wynton Marsalis. So it just happened to be while I was in New York, the last night, the last weekend of their season, Jazz at Lincoln Center. It was the last performance of the season. I happened to be in town, and Wynton and I connected. And of course, I went to the show as I always do. And after the show, he and I hung out all night as we typically do, and just kind of talked. And Skane, as I call him, but Skane and I were talking for hours. And every time I talk to him, to Wynton, I'm always troubled. And I always pray for that brother, because he's put so much into this. He's put so much into it. He's iconic, right? Wynton has put so much into this, and every time I talk to him, I feel this melancholy that he can't let go of. And you've talked to Wynton, so you know where I'm going here. There's a melancholy that he feels about the fact that our people don't appreciate this art form in the way that others do. You go to Jazz at Lincoln Center, the audience is 80-90% white. Wynton literally is on a 3-month tour right now around the world, and he'll be gone for a few months, and he's going to talk to and play for a whole lot of white people. But he's troubled as a son of New Orleans. He's troubled by the fact that our people seem not to embrace this art form in the way that others do. Here you come now with a program called Jazz Urbane. So when we come forward, I want to get Dr. Bill Banfield's take on that sort of melancholy that I see Wynton wrestling with all the time, about all that he has done, all that Bill Banfield has done, all that so many other greats have done to introduce this music to the world, and our people seem not to celebrate it in the way that others do. We'll talk about that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
Hi, it's Dominique DePrima from KBLA Talk 1580. It's going down on Juneteenth weekend, Saturday, June 17th at 11 a.m. for the Ribbon Cutting and Street Festival for the New Orleans corridor in Los Angeles. You know it. It's about time this important part of our story, our culture, was recognized by LA. Join Mayor Karen Bass, New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell, Councilwoman Heather Hutt, and Grammy Award-winning musicians Irvin Mayfield, Terrace Martin, and 1,500 or Nothing for an amazing celebration. Go to NOLA-to-LA-tickets.org to claim your free ticket. That's NOLA-to-LA-tickets.org. I'll be your MC, and I will see you there. Saturday, June 17th at 11 a.m. It's the New Orleans corridor in LA for Juneteenth 2023.
When I move my body, I feel like freedom.
Malik Books is hosting the Freedom to Read and Write Juneteenth celebration at Westfield Culver City Mall on June 17th from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Come celebrate the freedom to read and write with love, music, children's activities, author readings, book signings, and more. For more information, go to MalikBooks.com. Come celebrate with us at Malik Books. Story time with Jozo Bozo the Clown. Featured author Anise Rochelle, reading and signing her bestseller, Juneteenth a Book, teaches children about Juneteenth. Anise Rochelle has written 5 books that promote self-love and confidence. Come celebrate at Malik Books. Fun for the whole family. Freedom to read and write the Juneteenth celebration. Our voice matters. For more information, go to MalikBooks.com. Again, MalikBooks.com.
I'm James Alexander of the Barcades and a proud member of AARP. I play bass for the Isaac Hayes movement, including the legendary Chef theme. Isaac Hayes was the first African American to win an Oscar for Best Song in 1973. That was only the 4th Oscar ever awarded to anybody black.
AARP members are history makers, past and present. In celebration of the 75th anniversary of Black Radio, this feature is proudly powered by AARP.
What would you call a joy that is as solemn as it is sweet and knows no bounds? A joy that's beautifully rooted in soul and resilience. This is Black joy, a joy that reflects pride and honor despite every challenge. AARP believes the power of Black joy is limitless, and we celebrate this joy supreme. Join us in celebrating Black joy at aarp.org/Black community.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Bill Banfield is the host of a brand new program called Bill Banfield's Jazz Urbane Hour, coming to KBLA Talk 1580 the weekend of June 24th. The Jazz Urbane Show will be heard Sundays at 10 p.m., Sundays at 9 p.m. You hear a lot more about that. It's a part of an entertainment block that we're announcing on Saturdays and Sundays starting again a week or so from now. But Bill, we were talking a moment ago about Wynton Marsalis and my conversation with him last weekend about, just this sad feeling he has, I'd put it that way, about why our people don't embrace the art form of jazz the way others do. Give me your thoughts on that, sir.
Well, I think this has been a continued, every generation, of trying to bridge that divide between the black community and back to jazz. And Whitney and others of our generation and during this time has share that dilemma and share that feeling that this is really an important music, and we're losing a lot if we don't listen to that music. And it has to do with the way in which the media projects black music as well. It's not as inclusive as it used to be. I mean, what you're getting on KBLA will be all of this music celebrated, so it makes those connections. The guests that we're having on KBLA, on the program, actually make that bridge. I mean, Nona Hendrix is our first guest, and I mean, she is someone who lived through all those periods and can appreciate that music. And in her music, you hear that. Neo Soul was another attempt with Jill Scott and others to bridge that, to make sure that the quality of jazz and its input and impulses connect with the contemporary impulses today. I mean, if you think about somebody like Art Blakey, they had to start to win and gain the black community back they started to use contemporary titles,
Mm-hmm.
you know, talking about the church or talking about, you know, black food and whatever. You talk about food, so that black people saw jazz as being the same language that connects to the people of the time. So we have this work to do. That's what the Jazz Urbane is about, is to continue to show the wide variety of how these linkages from blues to church music to R&B back to jazz again all link into this one and powerful language that defines us. I think it's an educational issue, and we're so glad that you're there to help us do this. When people hear the music, they feel the music,
Mm-hmm.
but they have to hear it, you see? And when they hear it and they feel it, they can see it and they can experience it, but there are less venues where that can happen.
Yeah.
So I think it has to be a huge kind of embrace of all the parts of the media, radio, what's projected in TV images, the internet, all of that. So I think you're helping with these shows to really bring black people back to the wealth and the richness of our traditions, and jazz is critical to that.
Beyond the technical stuff, what have you been most trying to get across to your students at Berkeley and beyond over the years when it comes to this music?
Yeah, it is absolutely arming themselves with the cultural apparatus that defines who they are and helps define others.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like about black music, because the musicians had that their views and their lens on both of those things. What they were doing to be, Tavis, to use their gifts appropriately, but also being concerned with how those gifts impacted people in the world. So today, a lot of younger artists, they get a lot of stuff thrown at them that makes them try to be like, what's on the TV, what's on the radio. And those kinds of projections aren't always the most helpful. As you know, I don't want to sound like an old man here. You and I came up in time when music, the musicians, the productions were they were crafted well. So these were by great musicians, and they were great songs. And in those songs, there were great messages, and the messages were about lifting the people up. We can go through, you and I, a long litany of tunes about what that is, from Earth, Wind, and Fire, Keep Your Head to the Sky, to India Ivory, Brown, Brown Skin. So there are all these messages. When that gets taken out of the focus of the music, both whether it's a political mechanism is doing that, or whether it's just ABC, the dollars of the green of the dollars, then our people and people in general are shortchanged. So that's the big thing we try to teach young musicians, is to be committed to that notion of having the best use of your gifts to impact somebody in the world.
Bill Banfield knows everybody, and everybody knows Bill Banfield. You're going to be amazed at his guest roster on Jazz Urbane every weekend starting June 24th here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
The Los Angeles Urban League helps African American and others in underserved communities achieve true social parity, economic self-reliance, and civil rights. For over 100 years, Los Angeles Urban League has ensured our communities have access to careers with living wages, opportunities to start and grow businesses, and clear pathways to personal and professional growth. Programs like BizCamp, Construction Career Academy, Bob Business Ready, and B-Warp. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program are examples of the ongoing events designed to make our centennial mission to rebuild Black Wall Street right here in LA a reality. To sign up for our newsletter or to support the Los Angeles Urban League with your time, talent, and donations, visit laul.org. That's laul.org. The Los Angeles Urban League is a proud sponsor of Urban Family Focus, Saturdays at 7 a.m. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
Have you faced discrimination in Los Angeles? The City of LA Civil Rights Department can help. They investigate private sector discrimination in LA City in commerce, education, employment, and housing. If you're facing discrimination, submit a complaint online for free at laisforeveryone.com. That's laisforeveryone.com, or call 213-978-1845.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
So, Bill Banfield, tell me more about what you hope to accomplish with this new program, Jazz Urbane, coming to this station on June 24.
Well, I think that the most important thing that you brought up and what the show's about is conversations with artists. I mean, we play a lot of music. We get a wonderful producer that we're working with here, who you know very well, JD. JD brings an incredible wealth, but he also brings a real interest and an understanding of the contemporary pulses today. So it's interesting that we have this wonderful playback between he and I, so we get to really listen to the music that's going on today. What you're going to hear in the Jazz Urbane Cafe show is lots of music from all the periods today back to the foundational music. And so the guests that are coming on, Tavis, we have having those discussions. I mean, Sweet Honey in the Rock, Najee, Nona Hendrix, Black Bach, who is actually someone I know very well. He's my cousin. And he's someone who's from Detroit too, but is steeped in hip-hop culture, but steeped in classical music as well, and makes those bridges. So the discussion of the way in which our music is rolled out, its impact, what it means, but also what the future holds for music. So we ask challenging questions, but we also ask and show affirming things by having these artists. So I love it to be, you and I love to talk a lot, Tavis. I love to talk to you all day about this and talk on my own show. But the show is set up to be a vehicle for artists to talk about what you and I know we as artists do. But we have a variety. I mean, there must be 50, 60 guests already that are signed up to be on the show. So that's what people will hear. They're going to hear music. We're going to actually play a whole track of music and then talk about it.
Yeah.
And then have artists talk about how this relates to the aesthetics of the building of a powerful black aesthetic and what that has meant for the world and what it means for us today.
I've known Bill Banfield for years now, way back in the day when I was on NPR. He and I worked together then, and the NPR audience loved Bill Banfield. I know the KBLA audience will love him as well. I've been looking forward to an opportunity to get him back on the lineup here. And so you will start to hear Bill Banfield's Jazz Urbane Hour on the weekend of the 24th, Sundays, maybe back up, Saturdays at 10, and Sundays at 9 p.m. Saturdays at 10 p.m., Sundays at 9 p.m. We'll tell you more about this. You'll be hearing promos ad infinitum, ad nauseum, starting next week, trust me, to promote this new entertainment block that we're launching on Saturday nights and Sunday nights. And one of the programs in that block will be Bill Banfield's Jazz Urbane Hour. Again, Saturdays at 10, Sundays at 9 p.m., and you don't want to miss that. In 2010, Banfield was hired by Quincy Jones, Q, to write a national music curriculum and book for schools learning about American popular music culture. So he is the right person to host this show, Jazz Urbane. Dr. Banfield, good to have you on, my friend. We'll talk to you soon and look forward to your first show on June 24th.
Much love, sir. Much love. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. When we come forward after news, traffic, and sports, more of Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden is expected to announce a plan to make concert ticket prices more transparent. There's been pressure on the major entertainment companies to reduce sky-high ticket fees. Biden's announcement is expected to include a pledge from Live Nation that starting in September, all tickets sold through Ticketmaster will show one clear total price. In California, it is day 2 of the Juneteenth Film Festival in Monterey. 12 different films, including documentaries that tell, of course, is Monday. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BIN.